I would like to thank everybody for coming out this evening and for the town hall meeting in regards to the 1 cent sales tax. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is James Long. I'm a lifetime member of this community, and we're here tonight to provide you guys with some information in regards to the 1 cent sales tax proposition that we have that we're going to be voting on at the end of this month. And so we've got some information that we're going to provide for you, as well as give you guys an opportunity to ask some questions. So Tina here has some postcards that she's been passing out, and so if you guys have a question that you want to ask, please make sure you turn that back into her and we'll get your questions addressed. So again, thanks for coming this evening, and we're going to start things off here with a little 5-minute clip, and we'll get started.
On June 3rd, the Guthrie City Council passed a resolution to place a 1% sales tax increase on the ballot for voter consideration on August 26, 2014. If passed, the city's portion of sales tax would increase from 3% to 4%, or 1 penny per dollar spent. In an effort to provide information to voters of Guthrie, we are providing some important details for you to consider when making this important decision. What is sales tax?
Sales tax is the main revenue source for the city of Guthrie. For every taxable dollar spent in Guthrie, we pay 8.5% in sales tax. You know, it's important to know that that sales tax is shared with other governmental agencies. For instance, the state of Oklahoma receives 4.5%, Logan County receives 1%, and the city of Guthrie receives 3%. In other words, for every taxable dollar spent, the city receives 3 cents per dollar. That is what funds fire, police, EMS personnel and equipment to all of the city's departments and its 114 employees.
Why is this such an important decision for the citizens of Guthrie?
And the thing that I think about is that 1% increase in sales tax, an example of how that might affect somebody is that if they spent $10,000 in the community, that 1% would cost them $100. And it's going to go to tornado sirens for the community. It's going to go to compensation for city employees, you know, fire and police. And this tax is a tax that it comes about because we choose to go out and spend the dollars. It's not something that's forced on us. When we make a decision to go spend that money, that's how we're going to pay that tax.
I'm Cody Mosley, Economic Development and Marketing Director for the City of Guthrie, and I'd like to tell you about what our current sales tax rate in Guthrie is. An increase from 3 to 4% in the upcoming sales tax election will put Guthrie in the same category as Cashion, which is at 4%, Langston at 4%, Newcastle at 4%, and still below cities like Okarche at 4.5%, Piedmont at 5%, and Choctaw at 4.25%. Altogether, there are 185 cities or towns in Oklahoma that have at or above a 4% sales tax rate. For more information about the upcoming sales tax election, please feel free to visit our website at cityofguthrie.com.
I'm Robert Davis. I serve as the chairman of the city's Rate and Fee Committee, and our job has been to represent the citizens in matters that involve any kind of rate increase for city fees of all types, and so we get an opportunity in analyzing these things to ask a lot of questions on behalf of the community, the kinds of questions we believe that most citizens would want to have answers for in looking at rate increases. And the staff is very professional, very thorough, and very cordial in providing any information that the committee requests. The last sales tax that was approved and is in place in the city of Guthrie was approved in 1979. That was 35 years ago. Our equipment across the board is old, suffers from high usage, high mileage. Equipment costs a great deal of money. We have several $1 million worth of equipment in the fire department alone. And then in addition to personnel and equipment, there's a lot of capital improvements, a lot of projects. We believe that it's time to take this matter before the general public, educate our community as to where we're at and how much we're falling behind.
Your sales tax dollars are what keeps the City of Guthrie's services viable and moving in the right direction. Your city government encourages you to consider all of the information available to you and to vote on August 26th. It is important for you and every citizen of Guthrie. If you would like additional information, contact City Hall at 405-282-0496 or your City Council representative. This is your town, your time.
The first slide here really just talks about some of what the video had mentioned before, and that's that our last sales tax increase was in 1979. That's 35 years ago, and I'm just amazed at the fact of everything that we have currently been able to do off of the same amount of sales tax, or the same percent anyway, since 1979. What we're looking at here is we've actually got two separate sales tax issues that we're going to be voting on when we go to the polls on the 26th, okay? And so I think it's really important that everybody understand the differences between the two, and so they know which one or which way they want to vote on both issues. The first one, which is the one we're going to discuss tonight, is the city sales tax. Okay, that's the one we're going to provide you with the information on. And the other is the county sales tax, the renewal of the 1 cent sales tax that they currently have. The purposes for our 1 cent sales tax, or for the City of Guthrie, is for two things really here. We've got plans for capital improvement projects, which is 50% or half of that cent would go towards that. And we've got the other half cent that would go towards salaries and compensation. The Citizens Rate and Fee Advisory Committee would make recommendations or suggestions to the council for what those capital improvement projects are going to be from year to year based on the amount of funds that we have available to us. If you can look at the chart here, we've got several different years in front of us. We've got from 2010 fiscal year to 2014 fiscal year. And really what's important to see here is the fact that we're only up 9% from last year. And I don't know for how many of you guys remember all the hype that we had in regards to the huge concert weekend of Mumford & Sons coming to town, but we're only up 9% for the year with the huge concert that we had in town, and we know that brought a lot of people to town. So it's important to see where we're at in regards to increased over last year. This slide really talks about the top 10 sales tax producers, and if you can look on here, we've got 5 of them that actually are located on the I-35 corridor. We've got Brahms, Loves at I-35, Holiday Inn, and also John Vance that's on the I-35 exit as well, second Guthrie exit. This really talks about where we get our money. And actually, I'm going to go back because I really want the top 10 sales tax producers to realize that out of the top 10, top 5 are located on I-35. And we've got numbers that 20,000 people per day exit that I-35 exit. So the people that are spending money for this 1 cent sales tax, this burden would just not be paid for by the citizens of Guthrie. We're not the ones that would be footing the complete bill. We're really sharing this with the people, the individuals that just stop in our town to stay at the Holiday Inn, stop off the Brahms, the Arby's, things of that nature. And then we can see the other 5 top producers being Walmart, Oklahoma Home Centers or ACE, Homeland, Stables, and then McDonald's. So it's real important, I think, that you guys have a good understanding that 5 of those aren't even located within Guthrie proper here that's at I-35. So where do we get our money from? You can see, for those of you who can't see those numbers, the sales and use tax, which is the largest piece of the pie, is $4.7 million, okay? The rest of those numbers are all conglomerate from different types of services or things that the city does provide. For instance, there's 5 of those that could be combined together that you would find on your city utility bill, such as your sewer bill, your trash bill, user fee, water collections, water treatment plant fee, and as well as the CMOM fee. Those are all things that we find on our water bill for our city utility bill. And the rest of those are just other smaller amounts of income that the city gets for different things. Hotel motel tax, fire and EMS revenue, fees and permits, municipal court fines, and other taxes. Then if you look at the next slide, you can see what our expenditures are. And so we have over $14 million in annual expenditures that we have. And our operating budget is $10.3 million of that. You can see the in the blue piece of the pie. So that's the largest function of that. The rest of it is services and charges, street capital improvements, which, you know, if we really look at street capital improvements, which is one of the things that we're looking at, I mean, we don't put a lot of money towards roads. We just don't have that much to give. The next slide talks about operating budgets for all departments, and our operating budget being the $10.3 million. And you can see that of our operating budget, the biggest portion of that is for police and fire. I mean, those are services that are things we can't cut. We don't want to cut. I don't want to cut as a citizen in the city of Guthrie. And you can see that the rest of those are very small fractions or pieces of the pie. There's not a lot of money that's put towards any other one thing if you look at that. So we've got very little going towards streets or economic development or community development or sanitation, wastewater plants, things of those nature. We've got most of it going to our police and fire. And as we're going to see in a little bit, I mean, we don't have enough going to police and fire, believe it or not. The next one is personnel budget comparison. If you look at just, I mean, on the thin personnel that the city of Guthrie runs, and we do not run a very large personnel base compared to other municipalities. We run very skinny. And you can see that our personnel budget is over $5.9 million, which that's more than the sales tax. So, I mean, we don't have enough just to pay the income just based on sales tax alone as currently collected. This is the debt service and utility users fees. If you look in regards to what revenue we have and the debt service that we have, we're really very lean even on our debt service. We don't have currently that much debt compared to other municipalities our size and what we have. So our city has done a very good job so far ensuring that we don't have a lot of public debt. Next, I want to talk about the importance of sales tax. We have Oklahoma being the only state in the union, where municipalities do not receive any funding from your property taxes. But now if we look at, in the state of Oklahoma, who receives sales tax, we see that looking at our current sales tax, the state receives 4.5% of that. Our county receives 1% of that, and we're going to vote on that again this month as well. And our city only gets 3%, okay? So we get 3% to run our city. And so it's important to understand that we don't have a way to really make money other than, or drive revenue other than sales tax. Or we really want to look at it, and we're going to talk about our utility bill. So that's the important thing. I mean, unless we want to pay additional fees as people who live in this community, sales tax is the only way to generate additional income. So we have 186 cities, as you saw in the video, across Oklahoma that have a 4% sales tax rate or higher. Piedmont being 5%, Choctaw 4.25%, Drumright 4.5%, Okarche 4.5%, Sayre 5%. And then we have several communities around us in our own county here that have that are at 4%: Cushing, Langston, Marshall, Orlando, and Cashion. Current sales tax expenditures, you can see that what we currently have, only $161,000 out of the $10.3 million operating budget, and the things that we're utilizing that money for are just some basic needs here. Copier leases, $29,950. Our phone systems, $11,107. Computer lease purchase agreements, a little over $9,000, almost $10,000. Digiticket, $10,000. Vehicle equipment lease purchase, a little over $100,000. And then vehicle equipment lease purchase, a little over 100,000 with 3 police units, 1.5 ton truck. You can read that. Excavator, dump truck, loader, grader, backhoe. Sorry, that's not necessarily on there. Or he already moved ahead.
I didn't mean to.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So you're the one pushing me. Okay, I'm sorry. No, I'm just kidding. So, but you can see that we don't really have a lot in there as far as current expenditures. All right, capital costs. Here's some estimates. So, what would the 1 cent sales tax go for? These are just some things that are currently in need. And the city, we actually currently have, as a city, a need list totaling in excess of $16 million. So this is just a drop in the bucket. I mean, we currently have been putting things off for so long that it's at a point that our need list is quite lengthy. But here's some items. Fire engine, $500,000. Replace and repair tornado sirens, $450,000. Water line replacements, $1.5 million. Seward Road to Liberty Lake being $815,000. Traffic signal upgrades just for one intersection, $130,000. Liberty Lake ATV trails, $250,000. Vehicle officer cameras, $50,000. Just to kind of give you an example too, we just recently having to get some estimates for a bar screen. Low bid on that, $240,000, and we have to have this for our wastewater. If we don't upgrade and spend the $240,000, then we could be looking at potential fines from DEQ, and those could be as much as $10,000 a day. So do you spend the $240,000 that you don't have, or do you take a chance on being fined $10,000 a day for something you don't have, and you still have to spend the $240,000? So it's kind of left up to us. Do we want what do we want to do? Do we want to step up to the plate and pay for our expenses, or do we want to not? Next slide really just talks about personnel budget, and all I really want to get in here and look at, I mean, you can see all the numbers here, and this information, if you are interested, will be on the City of Guthrie website. But you can see that we have a shortfall. Our projected sales tax for fiscal year 14, you can see, is a little over $4 million, $4.7 million, but our personnel budget is 5.9. So again, our sales tax revenue is not even paying completely for our personnel. Personnel being very, very important to us. The slides to come just looks at, we've already got a shortfall, and we're already having a hard time even meeting what surrounding communities are paying. So we've got some competitive comparisons on the next slides. This is for police chief. So what you may be able to see down at the bottom is you can see the percent of the market and where we're at, and it's a negative number. So we're average about 40%, 41% below what the other markets are paying for a police chief. You look at superintendent of streets, we're about 35% below market for superintendent of streets. Equipment operator, we're about 38% below market for equipment operator. For a chief building inspector, we're at about 31% below market value. Firefighters, we're at 25% below market value. Police officers, we're at about a 25% below market value there. And dispatcher, we are 38% below market value for a dispatcher. I think it's important to understand that Taco Mayo pays a higher wage than we do for our dispatchers. So we're not really offering competitive wages. So we can't say, come work in Guthrie because we pay competitive wages, because simply we don't. So it makes it hard to get people, and it makes it hard to keep people. If you look at turnover rates just for Public Works and Police for 2013, Public Works was 40% and Police was 25%. So turnover rates are costly. For those of you who may or may not be familiar with staffing and personnel and what it takes to train, it costs a lot of money to hire someone and to train them and to keep them. And as soon as you lose them, you've got to start the process all over again. And so I think it's really important to understand that being able to offer competitive wages, which part of this 1 cent sales tax would go towards, 0.5% would go towards competitive wages, we could truly make a good impact on the people that we were able to recruit for our community and be able to retain. So I think it's important to understand that we need to do that. The last slide asks if this Guthrie's version of a MAPS program. Answer is really plain and simple. No, it's not. I mean, you want to know why, in my opinion, that it's not? It's because we haven't taken care of our basic needs in order to start adding those fun, exciting, attractive things to our community. We can't even take care of wastewater. We can't take care of a water treatment plant. We've had to impose fees on our water bill in order to pay for those things. So we're not at a place yet in which we can do that. So I think that it's important that in time, once we start addressing some of these things that need to be taken care of, then absolutely our city council could start looking at some of those sexier things that we want for our city, attractive things that we want in our communities. But at this point, we're just not there. So what I'd like to do is we've taken up some cards for some questions. Has anyone have a card that they haven't turned in yet? You've got one? Okay. First one here. What happens if the 1 cent sales tax does not pass? To get things, what would we have to give up? Well, the bottom line is we have expenses. And we're going to pay for them as a city one way or another. And so what the city has allowed us here is to make a choice. We can either allow others to help us foot the bill by imposing a 1 cent sales tax and spreading it across to everyone who spends money in our municipality, or the city individuals who actually receive a water bill, which is around 4,000 people, they could impose a fee potentially. That would obviously have to go before council. I'm not saying that would happen, but that's the possibility. They could raise our water bills by imposing another fee. In fact, to get things done, we may have to look at cutting services. I mean, there are certain things that obviously we don't have to continue to run as a community. We don't have to have a pool. We don't have to have a library. We don't have to have street sweeping. Although some would be able to argue that that actually helps keep trash down from getting into the wastewater and so forth. So it's a good service that we provide. And so those are things that we would have to do. We would have to be looking at cutting services just to make ends meet, as well as looking at probably imposing another fee onto our water bill. What is the city's total debt, just not debt service? So is my answer on one of those slides that I can go back and reference?
No, I can address it.
Okay.
Hang on, let me pull the exact number. It's approximately 20.5 million. All the items that are debt service are CMOM, AMR, Langston, and a digester. So you can see those are all water and water related. The revenues that provide for those are either revenue neutral. In other words, the Langston water line debt is paid for by revenues. So you wouldn't have that money available because you would have never built the Langston line. So those items are paid for through revenues. So none of those items are paid for through a sales tax. Those are paid for by revenue producing items.
Thank you. How long will this tax last? And identify specifically the capital improvement projects. Well, the tax is not one that would fall off. It would be a permanent tax that has been proposed. So the 1 cent sales tax, once imposed, would not have a sunset date. It would be there permanently. and identifying specifically what capital improvement projects are there. On the slide, that hopefully answered your question as far as some type of things that need to be done regarding fire engine, tornado sirens, things of that nature. Obviously, each year that would have to go before the city council. The city council would make those decisions based on the budget for that particular year on what projects we could actually address at that time. So, like I said, we've got an excess of $16 million worth of projects to choose from. So, if anybody want to add anything?
You don't place sunsets on sales taxes for capital improvements, equipment purchases, and personnel and operation maintenance. The only time you would use this, you would enact a sunset with a sales tax would be if you were trying to retire the debt on a specific project. And there are some wonderful projects out there that we would love to do. A lot of people would like to have a water park. Some people would like to have a major conference center. These are wonderful projects, and those are the kinds of projects that you almost always fund through general obligation bonds. And the reason you do that is they're very, very expensive to begin with, and you use property taxes to pay for them, and the property taxes come down each year as the debt is retired. When the entire
debt is retired, the tax is removed. You can't do that. You could use sales tax to fund a major project, and you could put a sunset on that, and that would be a great program if we had already taken care of all of our infrastructure needs. But since we're so many years behind on infrastructure needs, we don't have any choice but to apply this tax to annual operation and maintenance programs and capital improvements. And those never go away. You know, a major fire vehicle was in there as a $500,000 project. I imagine by the time we put the bells and whistles on a fire truck that we really need for our fire services, that's going to be a $750,000 item. And it doesn't make any difference what kind of equipment like that you have. As soon as you would retire the debt on that, it would be time to buy other equipment that are just as important needs to the community. So the reason we're suggesting that this sales tax not have a sunset is just because we have so many of these kinds of recurring purchases that have to be made time and time again.
Next question is, I am concerned about the extenuous expenses such as sidewalks, beautification, and other expenses. I understand police, fire, library, etc., but instead of imposing another burden upon the citizens and visitors, why can't we better manage the funds we already have? You know, unfortunately, yes, we always want to ensure that the money that is currently being collected is being spent properly, and I know that the city budget is available for anyone to see at any time. I think it's just unfortunate that because we're still trying to operate based on a 1979 last sales tax being increased in 1979. We're just not able to. We don't have enough funds to manage is the problem in order to pay for all of the different needs that our city has. You guys have anything more you want to add?
The nice thing about being a citizen, you can always have an opinion that you can come up with a better solution than the people that we retain to administer and manage our city. But that's just false logic. You know, those are nothing more than opinions that are based on ignorance. You know, I've heard people say, everybody's like that. I've heard people say, well, you know, if the fire department would get rid of the EMS services, we could save a ton of money. Well, maybe, and maybe not. What would the alternative be? But the EMS service is a significant expenditure of the city.
The question is about beautification and all those other garbage, not the fire department or the police department, so it's not a big question.
Okay, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that you could cut a service like that, but then you'd have to contract for that same service otherwise. The contract fees may be just the same.
Talk about beautification projects, not EMS.
Okay, so are you asking to not spend money on beautification?
No, I want to know where the money's mean, with all due respect, I just saw a salary that they were $172,000 for a city manager. Okay?
I wish.
I am making, well, that salary was
No, I'm sorry, the budget that you saw before you was my staff, so when they say city manager budget, and it's very transparent, it's online, and that also,
budget needs to be cut, and it goes to the fire chief and the police chief.
that is one way to do it, and I would suggest talking to your council member.
Exactly what I'm talking about.
And
I
don't allow me to.
Explain to everybody about that. You said it was a secret, not just you.
No, it's not just me, and we have also our compensation package enrolled in, also that, so it's not the salary item. We have to pay federal taxes, and so we have FICA in there. Our health insurance is just budgeted at a 10% increase. We were actually anticipating more. We were able to negotiate a health insurance, I say only increase of approximately 9 to 10%. So that's a compensation package, not a salary.
Well, maybe it's not just yours, is it?
No, ma'am, plus that.
Are you on staff? I was just asking.
I'm just curious if your staff keeping class as some everyone, you go to the fire.
I have no disrespect, but have you been to City Hall to see what our staff looks like? Okay. All right, well, very well. I'm just asking.
Senior citizens can't donate their time where they've worked their whole damn life, they know the ins and the outs. Come down and help Serena Breland so she doesn't have to hire people.
Here. Great idea.
All right. The last question that I have here is actually, it's not a question, and I'll be honest, I don't understand it, so I'm going to state it, and hopefully, Patty, you can help me understand it. Since great media makes a great town, could we consider our great media man, Blaine, to help him, please? I don't know what...
I just think we have a great media man here that works for next to peanuts. Media is what makes your town sell and go. Look at Edmonds Media. I know we can't afford Edmonds Media, but there again, you have people that were in the media that are retired here that can step in and help our media man, and let's give him a salary he can live on. I'm saying the media is darn important to growing historic Guthrie. And we're not spending anything on it.
If you bring more people to Guthrie, you have a larger tax pool, or you don't have to raise the taxes. Just market Guthrie, get people to come in there and do their business here, shops here, and be tourists here. But if you got a high tax rate, they don't come.
Why not market the city and get more people coming and spending that gives us more money? We just mentioned this, not making us look greedy. And I mean, personally, I don't think it makes us look greedy. I think it makes it look like we're taking care of our house. We're taking care of our bills. We're doing what's required as a citizen living in this community to make sure that not only do we have things taken care of our own home, but at our neighbor's home, and we're taking care of things for the next generation. Our community has not done a good job of that, and I've grown up here, Dan, and I will say I'm very disappointed in my parents, my grandparents, that they haven't set us up for something better. Instead, they've just continued to say no to tax increase and not taking care of, not put a plan in. And what we're trying to do is trying to put a plan in place where we can get things taken care of.
You have $16 million worth of identified needs, and you're talking about using volunteers and people like that. And yeah, maybe you could save a couple $100,000, but it's a drop in the bucket. It's just a drop in the bucket.
It's better than nothing.
But it's not near enough, that's the point.
That volunteers. Volunteers can't come volunteers. See, if I have one of those, they're working for free, so, it's kind of got nothing to do with what they want to do. I've heard a lot of volunteers in town that they'll say they're market volunteers, this is why I don't volunteers, because they're not getting paid for volunteering. So, they're marketing to save our city, to save our library, to save the police, to save the fire. The people really don't understand what the hell is really going on. We have got to do something and do it now and stand up for Guthrie. And I hate to say this, I'll vote for the sales tax increase, but only like this gentleman said, get your priorities straight once and for all. Do the right thing.
I I think we are doing that, Patty, by putting together this plan, in all honesty. And I'm speaking as completely a citizen of this community. I am not paid for or have a role of any kind by the city. Let me take that back. I do sit on the Historic Preservation Board. But other than that, I don't have any other connections with the city. And I think this is our time to step up to the plate and do what's right. It's our time to finally draw the line in the sand and say, you know what, we've got to do something. And unfortunately, we got to put our money where our mouth is. It takes money to make these types of improvements. You can't make $16 million worth of improvements on volunteers. And yes, it is a great opportunity for our older generation to step in and do something. But I don't know, I would like to know from the Chamber of Commerce who tries to staff with volunteers, if they're able to even staff their office every day of the week with volunteers. I know for a fact they've had a hard time doing that in the past. So volunteers are great, but volunteers aren't the answer.
Our citizens are pretty good about responding to important needs. And, you know, just about the time the city needed to come before the public and ask for a half-penny sales tax was when the Logan County Hospital issue came up. And we stood aside because we understood that health care and safety is very, very important to everybody. And people came out and they supported that sales tax that the county implemented, and we saved the hospital. And then the county jail problem came up. You know, I wish that the county would have funded the jail with property tax revenues rather than sales tax. But that was mandated on our county by the state and federal governments. They didn't have any choice but to build a new jail. And so we responded and we passed the tax in order to handle that mandate. Rural fire protection issue came up. We all know how many brush fires we got. We know what kind of a threat we live around. And so the rural fire protection quarter penny came on board, and who can argue with that? You know, those are all needed projects, and they were all funded. And we've stood aside now since 1979 while our public took care of those needs, and it's our turn. Somebody needs to look at the city of Guthrie. We receive more benefits from this community than any other level of government that is funded for us. We have an equal responsibility to see to it that our community grows in a financially accountable way. And it is financially accountable. If it wasn't financially accountable, we would have had bad audits every year for years. These guys are doing their job well. It's just that we don't have enough money to fund all of the needs that we have, and it's time now for us to step up for our own community and do what's right for our community.
And I would second what he's saying, as what James said, and a great example of just how far behind we are in this city and the pace that we're on. We only have enough money in the budget every year to do 1 mile of streets. And we have 143 miles of streets, as I understand it. So once every 143 years, you might expect your street to be repaved. And that's the pace we're on. We've got to pick up the pace and keep this city, that's infrastructure. That's just the streets. We're talking about sewer, water, everything. All these things have a cost. And if you don't pay for them, you're going to have to give up something else if you don't come up with the money another way. You have to give up something to pay for what you have to have.
And you can't give up, there's not enough cuts that can be made to make everything balanced for us. They're just not there. We have no bureaucracy in this community. We don't have any bureaucracy in county government. And if you would argue that we have a bureaucracy in our school system, perhaps we do, but that bureaucracy, again, is mandated by state and federal mandates. So, you know, you can't compare municipal governments with state governments or federal governments. We don't have this deep pool of unnecessary employees, you know, providing the public services that they provide. And we're not capable of doing the same job that they do in serving us because they're trained to do that. To say that we can do a better job as volunteers than the men and women that work for our community is saying that you can do a better job at teaching calculus than someone who's trained in higher mathematics. You know, these people, this is their life. They eat, think, and breathe city services that they're responsible for
responsible for it today. They have a passion for what they do, just like we have a passion for what we do in our own occupations. But if you think that I could do a better job in your occupation, having never sat in your shoes and performed a day of work in your occupation, you know that doesn't make any sense. So assuming that we've got citizens sitting on the sideline that's every bit as competent as employees we have is just faulty logic. We should be proud of our performance. They work for 35%, 35 to 40% less than every other community that provides the same kind of services that we're providing. It's like we're saying that they're worth that their value is 35% less than the value of public employees in all the cities in central Oklahoma. I just don't believe
Nobody's
it.
complaining about the salary for the police department. Your sunset clause, you gave a good explanation. The problem is you have a trust issue. People in government don't trust the leadership here. They trust the police and fire, and we want to give them the money. You don't want to give us any money, and you certainly don't want to get a cut for eternity. If you're going to trust, you want to trust, you should have put a 10-year limit on that. And then we can vote in again, we can approve again, we can say, you guys have done well, there's the 1% in here. There's no way to get this out. Once we put this in, you guys will have it forever, and we're not convinced you spent it well. You promised us the salaries, we're happy about the salary increase, nobody's complaining. And that's only half of what you're asking for. We want to know what that other house can be used for, and this beautification projects aren't cutting for it.
Dan, I got a couple of things. Let me address them. One, in the capital side, that's fire trucks, that's police cars, that's training equipment, that's medical equipment for the ambulances. That comes out of the other half that you're concerned about, so it's not all beautification. And also, I know your friend next to you mentioned sidewalks as beautification. It's public safety. You want people walking down the middle of the road when they get hit by a car, and you want them on sidewalks where they're safe and out of traffic.
Okay.
But it makes sense. I understand some beautification, or I can understand having concern with that, but it also is public safety.
Yeah, but Chief, you got $250,000 for ATV rides out at Liberty Lake.
Those are just examples of what could happen.
It's $250,000. It's part of the budget items that you guys are deciding to sell us on. I don't want to spend $250,000 for an ATV park out there. That was something that we ought to do as a small enterprise, not as a city.
And then we may well agree with you. Keep in mind, these are only needs that have been reflected to the community. It doesn't mean that those needs will have enough high priority to get funded. They may not get funded for 10 years. So just because they're in the overall list of needs doesn't mean that they have a priority that will make them as important.
But Dan, it may not be a need, but for every naysayer that says we don't want an ATV, there's that many more that say they want it. If you took the calls at City Hall to know all the phone, even the messages that I get, why can't we have this? Why can't we have that? Why don't we do this?
That's small enterprises. Not government. Small enterprise does an ATV park. Not city government.
Let's don't discount our sanitation services. You know, we have a sewer treatment plant that's under an EPA order for a number of improvements. That's why we have some debt. We're funding improvements that are mandated by the Environmental Protection Agency. But there are other improvements besides what we have indebted ourselves to save that sanitary sewer system. And I can assure you, if that sanitary sewer plant goes down, we're going to all know it immediately. We've got to have the money to operate and maintain and upgrade that facility. And we may still not be able to do it.
Well, let's go give these raises to the people that run our city government then if we need it that bad. Why don't we all suck it in a little bit here?
We're asking you to suck it in by giving 1 cent sales tax. That's what we're asking for, Patty. Patty, that's what we're asking for. We're asking for the entire city to shelter it. The last card says on $100 spent in Guthrie, what is the current sales tax on that $100, and how much more would that 1% raise? Well, I mean, currently, as we said, $8.50 is what you pay in sales tax on $100. And if both the county remains intact and the city's is also approved, it would be $9.50 that we would pay on sales tax. So we're asking everybody to pay essentially $1 more per $100 of stuff that they buy, versus if we have to do those improvements and we don't have the money, we don't get the sales tax increase, we face you getting another fee on your water bill. That's just, we have to pay for it one way or another.
Well, I just
a sunset clause, as was stated earlier. You can't put a sunset clause on taxes tied to manpower and salaries. What happens when that tax runs out? I've got to look at these guys in the face and say, sorry, we can't afford you anymore.
You make sure that you're organized enough to have another vote before it comes due.
Ma'am, the answer to your question is simple term. If you don't like the way the money's being spent, well, let them. You set up your elected official. Send it back. That's how it works. That's the kind of simple. So that is a sunset clause, and that is the answer to your question.
Yes, Mary Beth.
James, I just want to ask you a question. This communication is great. Why can't the city have a monthly meeting for input and also have a website where you can send a specific question and get an answer back and put it in the newsletter? Communication is your big problem. You all know what you're doing, but we don't know what you're doing. Let us have a voice and listen to it and let us have answers on specific questions. This could go on all night. If we had a meeting every month, come here 2 hours, write your questions.
There is a city council meeting every month.
Yeah, I know.
And emails go to
Speak at it. No, you can't.
Okay.
Communication, you said communication is the issue. Communication
Are you
is,
going to lower your salary? If we get this sales tax passed, will you lower your salary to help us out?
I think that's kind of an unfair question, actually.
Everybody else is sucking in.
Patty, why would she do
Because we
that?
hired her at a rate. We have agreed as a
Now, if
council.
Mark's in it, she would take less money. Patty, let her answer this question.
You know what, I'll answer that. Patty, as much as you'll donate, I'll match it.
but you said, well, go back to your question, communication, you said, is our problem. This city probably communicates more than any other, but communication is a cycle. We put the information out there, the staff does, whether you read it or not is on you. Whether you watch the videos is on you. There's a lot of cities that don't do what we do. This city communicates outward, but it has to be received and processed. But the information is available for you like no other city that you can probably find in the state, I'm betting. So to say that we don't communicate, I don't think that's fair to the city.
Mary Beth, I think those are great ideas. Whenever we, for example, this week we had an individual that on social media made some comments, we called them and we asked them for a meeting. Anytime anyone has questions, of course your elected officials have a contact information. I will speak to anyone at any time, and everyone I think here knows that. So any questions that you have, what we're doing with those questions is we have a frequently asked questions located at thecityofguthrie.com. There's also a survey you may take, and you can see the results online at any time, so we keep that up. And also on that survey, there are open-ended comments that you can give, and we read these regularly, and we take those into consideration. So any of the questions that you have, when they come to us, we add them to that frequently asked questions. So if you go to the City of Guthrie website, I believe that you can find many answers there, but feel free to call us, contact us. I've been known to meet people for coffee, for dinner, for whatever it takes. If you have questions, we'd be happy to answer those. Yes, ma'am. We don't have any of our boards and commission meetings prior to 6 p.m. at night. So all of our planning, airport, parks. Workshop budget is at 6 o'clock p.m.
That's not city, yeah.
Not the city's meetings.
I'd also like to respond to the question that we don't know what we're doing in the area of capital improvements. Keep in mind that the city council adopts the annual budget, and it has to be adopted by October of every year. And all of the capital improvements that they have decided of high enough priority to be funded in that year are in that budget document. So once that budget is adopted each year, you know what's going to happen in that year. And if you have a favorite project that didn't get funded that year, then you can talk to the people and try to generate, more interest in that particular item so that it becomes a higher priority in next year's budget.
Okay, I only have one more question up here, and it says, will city officials, such as the city manager, get a raise if the tax passes? And I can't speak for other city officials, but regarding the city manager, that raise would be voted on by the council. So that's not, there's nothing in the tax that says instantly that anybody's going to get a raise. That would all be based on merit and so forth. So there's no instant raises given just because this 1 cent sales tax passes. So, yeah. Yep. I have one comment. It says, if we approve the sales tax and spend a few dollars on beautification, it will bring more visitors to fund our sales tax, which is true. So
one thing that's really special about our community, and very few communities in Oklahoma have this wonderful benefit, and that is we are the most historic town in Oklahoma. We have more traveling public come visit our place than any town like ours in the state. And so when we have this sales tax revenue that is subsidized by that traveling community day in and day out, that is just taxes that we don't have to bear the burden on as residents in this city. And we're one of the few cities in Oklahoma that receive as much traveling income as we receive from those people that come through and visit our community. We get more benefits out of sales tax from people who don't live here and pay taxes here than any other community in Oklahoma. It's a wonderful opportunity for that.
Great city, the Chamber of Commerce, very well. Get ready to do all this too.
all right.
It takes a village.
Well, I appreciate everyone coming this evening. Thank you to the Chamber for being able to organize this event this evening. Again, thank you guys for coming. I hope you found it informative.